I think the biggest thing that one could do to do good at cold calling, and this will help you out in so many ways with life. If you could learn to detach, your value from what somebody else thinks about you, having these conversations and sales calls and such is really easy because who cares what they think?
Yo, what is up, everybody? I am Matt Druin. I am the host of the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast. I am psyched out of my mind today to have on Mr. Alex Kaufman, who is partner in crime with a former guest that we had on, Matt Teichke of Teichke Real Estate. They're co-owners in the entrepreneur community and also TR3 Capital, which we're going to talk about all three of those things today. And I want to not tell too much about Alex's background because I want him to tell a story, but you're going to want to listen to this whole thing because everybody comes from certain beginnings. And this is a guy that came from addict to jail cell to multimillionaire with 240 plus doors under ownership and a $45 million and growing real estate portfolio. So without further ado, I want to welcome you on the show, Alex, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm psyched out of my mind too, dude.
All right, man. So you were born and now you're here. What happened in between?
Born, now I'm here. So I was actually born 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, here in Round Rock, Texas. Matt and I both were born and raised here. For those who don't know, it's, just north of Austin, Texas suburb. So we're honestly, blessed and lucky to have been born and grew up and, know everything about this great city and great real estate market. But born and raised here, when I was, I actually grew up in a, great household. Round Rock's a great place. There's not many parts of Round Rock that are bad. But I grew up in a good household. My mom's a civil engineer. My dad worked for, a global software company doing stuff with them. And so I grew up in a good household, good parents, good family. But my entire life, at least growing up and still today, I've never really enjoyed following what other people were doing and never really enjoyed, the system of school and never really enjoyed, people in a position of authority telling me what to do. And so I was always kind of a rebel. And when I was a kid, I was doing that in a whole bunch of non-productive ways. Me and, my friends, when I was that age, got into drugs and alcohol pretty early, comparatively speaking to most people. When I was 11 or 12 years old, I was already drinking and smoking weed and stuff. When we were in 8th grade, I got kicked off the football team for smoking weed. Actually, Matt's mom is the one who got us kicked off the football team for smoking weed. But I started, doing that stuff when I was a kid. I was not focused on school. I was not focused on anything like that. And by the time I was, 21 years old, I was a full-blown heroin addict. From 12 to 21, basically, I honestly don't remember a whole lot. But from 12 to 21, getting kicked out of school, I went to alternative schools, when I would get kicked out of public school. Was on probation, had been arrested for, possession of marijuana and drug charges and such. Did not participate in school. Don't even know how I graduated. But what I did learn during that time was, I learned a lot of street smarts. I gained a lot of street smarts. I gained a lot of, relying on my instincts. As a part of the school system, I learned how to manipulate teachers and get by without, actually doing any work or anything. So that, I actually do believe that has benefited me, quite a lot in negotiations and partnerships and a lot of things, having these street smarts and having, that part of me just kind of ingrained in who I am definitely helps us and me out quite a bit. But, really was just headed nowhere, man. And like drugs and alcohol completely took over my life. And a lot of my friends didn't, go that far with it. They were able to to, practice, self-discipline and take care of their responsibilities and such. But me and a couple of other my buddies, were unable to. And thankfully, I was able to get out of that situation. When I was 21, like I said, full blown heroin addict. I was selling weed and drugs and stuff, and was miserable. Nobody who's doing heroin is happy. They're all living some sort of their own miserable life, and I definitely was. Uh, but I just couldn't, break out of that, and I could not get out of that cycle of addiction, no matter how bad I wanted to, because I did want to. After a while, the drugs and the alcohol stop working. And, you're just lost in this endless cycle of, what used to get you high or provide you pleasure or whatever, no longer do. And you're now just using drugs to no longer go through withdrawals. And so I was just stuck in this endless cycle of getting arrested for possession of marijuana charges. I probably promised myself and those around me that I was going to quit, doing drugs and turn my life around at least a thousand times, and when I made those promises to everybody around me, but most importantly to myself, I truly meant it. I really wanted to get well. I knew that I was meant for better things than what I was doing, and I would promise myself, like, I'm going to get a real job. I'm going to stop selling drugs. I'm going to stop doing drugs. I'm going to go to church. I'm just going to hang out with my grandparents. I'm going to go back to school. Like, I had promised myself all these different ways that I was going to get sober and stay sober this time. And it just never worked because I didn't have a real solution. And so when I was like August 13th of 2015 was the last time I used drugs. And that day, or actually the night before, I had really just kind of broken down, and I just miserable, dude. It's such a miserable existence. And, I was by myself. I was sitting on the edge of my bed trying to hit a vein so that I could stop going through withdrawals, shooting heroin. And, was just sick of it again. And I actually broke down and I went over to my friend's house, and I had never really admitted to people who didn't do heroin with me that I was doing heroin. Like even my close friends who probably knew that I was doing heroin, I would never admit that to you. I would tell you that it's the pills or this or that. But a good friend of mine and someone I really respected, and someone who always looked after me and was a really good friend. I went over to his place and showed him all the track marks, and showed him, told him that I was doing heroin, told him that I did want help. And he, that night, I don't remember a whole lot of it, but what I do remember is that he did say that, God was going to be the one who could be a solution for me, and could help me get out of this. And he prayed with me that night. And I ended up going home. And the next morning, I didn't do any heroin, but I did take, is probably the most amount of pills that I had ever taken at once before. And that day, is a complete blur. But I do remember that night on August 13th, or I guess it was probably the morning of August 13th, after midnight, driving down I-35, which is highway here in Texas, going to sell somebody some weed. And all I remember, I fell asleep at the wheel. All I remember is just like this big bang, big flash. I got in a wreck on the highway. Thank God, the person I hit didn't get hurt in any way whatsoever. And I didn't have a scratch on me. I don't know if I was wearing a seatbelt, what was, who knows, but I didn't have a scratch on me. My car was completely totaled. And like my first instinct is, like, shit, grab the weed, like store the weed. I know cops are coming. I don't know where I'm at. Anyways, cops come. And, after 2 hours of debating what happened with them and field sobriety tests and all those things, I got arrested for possession of marijuana charge. and they had brought the dogs out and searched the car. And thankfully that happened, because that was the last time I did drugs. That was the last time I was arrested. And I believe that the night prior, when I was when I went and spoke to my friend and we prayed together, like, this was God intervening on my life and pulling me out of the situation that I was in. And so I went to Williamson County Jail that night for a possession of marijuana charge. And I stayed there for like 25, 30 days. My family, previously, every time I'd been arrested, was willing to bond me out of jail. And I would, hire an attorney and fight the court system and all that stuff. But they left me in jail this time. They wouldn't bond me out. Uh, and thank God they did that too. Because, staying in jail, even though it wasn't for a very long period of time, it allowed me, the opportunity to get sober there for, a minute. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck here. And it allowed me to get clear on, all right, this is my opportunity to actually go get help. So when I got out of jail, I served my time there and got time served for the charge. And when I got out of jail, I went to a treatment center. So I went to a treatment center. Not a very nice place, not like what you see on TV where it's like, Passages Malibu and it's a resort style. Uh, I had that in my mind of that's what a treatment center was, but the place that I went to was really like spiritual boot camp, kind of. It was a place out in Whitney, Texas, called Brazos Recovery Services. Really great place. That place, God, all the people there saved my life. And I was in a treatment center for 120 days there, and that was really where my new life began. Learning how to form a relationship with God, learning how to live on spiritual principles, learning for the first time ever in my life, wanting to be honest versus dishonest, wanting to be selfless versus selfish, and living my life on completely new principles, with a relationship with God, and also helping people, really learning within those 120 days that, I thoroughly enjoyed helping the new guy who was getting into treatment and helping somebody out of the, situation that I was just in. Um, did that, stayed there, went to a sober living house. And all through all this, like, I'm 21 years old. My all my friends are graduating college. I have no skills other than all the street skills that I had learned. Had, no college. Everybody's getting good jobs and stuff. And like, I'm starting my life over. I really was like reborn at 21 years old, having to learn a new way to live, and like not remembering the previous 10 years of my life, basically, because I was high every single day. So uh, I went into a sober living house, and this was in Fort Worth or Lake Worth, Texas. And here, got a job and got a job at Firehouse Subs, making $8.25 an hour. And, my license was suspended from when I was arrested. So I was riding a bicycle to working back every day, sleeping on the top bunk of a bunk bed at the sober living house, working at Firehouse Subs, making $8.25 an hour. But I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life in that position. I was free internally. I had a relationship with God. I was helping people, and I was finally in a spot where I had such a solid, human foundation that I could now build off of, right? And I had always been, very entrepreneurial as a kid, through all the things that I was doing in non-productive ways. And so now I'm no longer doing that stuff, no longer, will consider that stuff. And so I'm thinking like, all right, what is a legal business that I can start? Right. Cause I'm not going to go work at Firehouse Subs. I'm not going to go to college and get, a career somewhere, be like my parents. I'm not going to go live that life. So, I have these jobs now, I'm managing the sober living house and living for free, really just kind of getting myself together still. but I'm looking for, legal businesses that I could start. I didn't know, just drive around every day. Like, I'm saving my money, is it gonna be a power washing business? Like, what am I gonna do to provide income for myself and work for myself? And I did that for a few years. Managed sober living houses, worked at Firehouse Subs, worked at a country club washing dishes, worked for an oil and gas company, cold calling mineral right owners, seeing if they'd sell us their mineral rights. Worked for this uh, like a electronics company that would buy these pallets of used or refurbished electronic parts like keyboards and processors and hard drives and graphics cards and all that stuff, and we would just resell it on eBay or wherever. And honestly, I was like, this is a lot like selling drugs. You just buy the electronics very cheap in bulk and then just resell them at a higher price online. And I wanted to do that, but a partner of mine, a friend of mine at the time, approached me, and we decided to start our own business in the recovery industry, substance abuse industry. And so what we did was we provided peer recovery support coaching, interventions, and transports for, people who were suffering from alcoholism and addiction, and for the treatment centers who these people were going to treatment at. Um, and that was very successful. We were extremely connected. I have a lot of friends who I'd gotten sober with who are working in this industry. But after like 12 to 18 months of doing that and running that business there and wanting this business to be successful and profitable, I found myself a lot of times having to make the decision of help somebody or get money from them. And I didn't realize, I hadn't really considered this prior to getting into this industry, because I loved helping people, right? But I'm also a businessman, and I love making money, and I love a profitable business, and I won't run a business that's not profitable or is losing money or is not successful. So, I was constantly faced with these conflicts, and I just ultimately decided that I do not want to continue that industry and have this moral conflict constantly, with myself. And I would rather just continue to help these people and volunteer. And I'd rather go make money elsewhere. And so around that time is so me and that partner split and shut down that business. I think he still does it, but I needed out. And that's around when I was reconnecting with Matt, and we were, Matt was investing in a bunch of cannabis stocks at the time. And so he's getting me to invest in cannabis stocks, and we're talking every day about business and investing and real estate. He was already a broker then. And so it was then when I really started connect with Matt and dive deeper in on the real estate stuff, And so Matt and I started looking at wholesaling deals. We were buying rentals. And this was like 2017, 2018. We bought our first rental property together. And, to now is when we have amassed over the last 5-6 years, all the stuff that we've done.
Alex, that's an awesome story and a great executive profile. I mean, I kind of relate to the same, not as drastic as what you went through, but I had like two sets of friends, right? I had my friends, and then I had my drug friends, right? And I never got into heroin or anything like that, but it was like smoking weed, taking acid, doing mushroom, so all that stuff, right? And it was like I kind of had like a choice and a fork in the road, and there's so many people that kind of have that and don't like. And I'm a parent myself, so I'm hyper sensitive to this. I mean, my daughter's only 4 years old, my son's only like eight months, but it's like this sort of like living nightmare through my mind. I was like, how? Because I had two loving parents too, right? And fortunately, I kind of snapped out of it and went into another direction. But But it's just a testament to, like, no matter how far you veer off the path, you can get back on the path and achieve greatness in the process too. So thanks for sharing that story, man. I know that stuff's not easy. Well, we were debating in the green room as to what deal we want to make a case study for today to kind of pull apart, and we came to the agreement, you and I together, to tell a story about your and Matt's like first like creative big deal, because both of you have different lived experiences and play different roles in it. So kind of take me through that, like that deal that you guys did together that was like big for you at the time, and kind of take me like start through finish through that.
Absolutely. So, it is a 14. I hope we're actually talking about the same deal, but it was a 14 unit mobile home park in South Austin. This deal is 3 minutes from the airport. It's 3 minutes from downtown Austin. Great location. And at the time, I think Matt and I probably had like 11 doors together, maybe 15 or so. Single family houses, duplex, maybe an eightplex, triplex. And so it was at the very beginning of, building out this portfolio. And uh, someone gave us a list of like 10 to 100 unit multifamily owners in the Austin area. And so I just grabbed this list, started cold calling, and found this guy, Jim Jensen. Called Jim Jensen. I think this is the only deal or lead we actually got from the list, but I was just calling this list. Hey, my name's Alex. Calling about this address. We're interested in buying it. Anyways, you get a whole bunch of no's and all that stuff. And Jim picked up the phone and said, "I'll sell it to you. 999,999.99. That's my price." And I don't even know if I finished my first sentence. And I was like, "All right, Jim, I could probably maybe get you that number. Can we come view it tomorrow? I'll bring my partner Matt." He said, "Yeah, go view it anytime you want. You can come by my office and we can talk about it." So I knew nothing about multifamily really, right? Like or mobile home parks. I didn't even know this was a mobile home park. I'm just watching YouTube videos, listening to people talk about NOI and all these things, right? Just to speak the language, and I'm talking to these people. And so Matt and I go check it out the next day. And again, like I said, sweet location. It's not the nicest place in the world. A lot of really old trailers. Jim never did anything to the park. And so it's, kind of a trashy looking little mobile home park. There's two retail spots up front, hair salon, nail salon, and then there's a single family house in the back. And it's on something like 2.46 acres in Austin. It's zoned MH1, which is Mobile Home Park 1 zoning. And then the other part in the back is SF3. But it's such a great piece of land. And Jim is a trip. So Matt and I go meet Jim at his office, and we're talking through the deal with him. And Jim is a talker. And he's telling us all about his time working with LBJ and aliens and the government and all this stuff for like, an hour and a half. And we're like, all right, so where's the rent roll? And Jim pulls out like a manila folder. He's like, here it is. And he writes it out, no income statements, no leases, no nothing. Right. And so at the time, Matt and I didn't have a bunch of experience with deals like this. So Matt knew somebody named Abe, and we called Abe and said, "Hey, we found this deal. Abe did creative type of deals, and Abe would, do some development for things like that, and owned some commercial real estate here in Austin." And so just asked Abe if he wanted to be our partner on this deal and split it with us and come in and, run point and kind of take it all the way through. And we'd let him, run the development of the park and make it nicer and everything. And so we brought Abe in and we negotiated, we gave Jim his price, 999,999.99. And he, we had a long time to close it. So Jim, it's a CPA. He's like 90 years old, but he still does CPA work, and he travels to Utah during the summer. So he was like, I'm about to go to Utah. The next couple months, I won't be back till beginning of the year. And we're like, great, we'll just set closing for then. So we locked it up at that price, and we ended up having this deal under contract for like 18, 20 months or something, all in our feasibility, right? Like $2,500 in earnest money. And the feasibility was we could back out if we want. So we had it tied up for like 20 months from like early 2021, maybe, or maybe it was like late 2020. I don't remember when this was. Maybe this was, yeah, we had it locked up from like late 2019, and we closed in May of 21. So we had it locked up, under contract, locked in at this price during the best time here in Austin for appreciation, right? Like values from June 2020 to June 21 increased 42% year over year, right? And so easily on this deal alone, just by having it under contract during that time without even owning it, we gained, $500,000 worth of value. And so we ended up, it was a big deal, right? So that's also too why we brought Abe in. We started getting loan quotes and everything towards the end of the closing, and it was, we bought it for that 999 number, and so I think we had to put like 350, $60,000 down with closing costs and everything, about 30% or so. And Matt and I didn't have the money. Matt and I had always like just, we get money in through our businesses and we put it out into investments. And so we were flipping properties, wholesaling deals, buying other rental properties. And when it came time to close this deal, we didn't have the cash, our 2/3 of the cash to close it. So Matt and I show up to closing, we sign all the docs and everything. And we had these deals under contract that we were wholesaling. It was 11 duplexes here in Round Rock on the same street, right next to each other. And we sold them to different buyers. So the closings were not in sync all at the same exact time, and the money wasn't there all at the same time. And so Matt and I knew that we had this money coming in. It was going to be like a $500,000 wholesale fee with our partner Doreen, and 2/3 of that would be Matt and I's, but it hadn't closed yet. And we went to sign, the closing docs for the mobile home park. So we go in that morning, we sign the closing docs, titles, going through everything. They're like, has your wire been sent? We're like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's good. And we left the closing, and the other deals closed, and, got our, 320 grand or whatever it was, our portion, and wired that into title. And so, that's a good example of like how a lot of our deals initially got done like that. Like we never had the resources ever, so for like anybody here who is saying, I can't go buy a 14 unit mobile home park, or, we're closing a 109 slot RV resort right now that costs 7.1 million. And, we didn't have the money to buy that either. We didn't have the investors ready to go to invest in that day one. But we have always figured out ways to get deals done and get creative. And like, that's how we, got a lot of these deals done initially. We never had the capital, but we would always figure out a way to go get it and get the deal done, So we ended up getting it done. It's a great deal. We actually haven't done a whole lot to the park. We raised the rents. They were at like $450 a slot for the slot and the mobile homes. They were park owned homes, which is super cheap in Austin. And so when we bought it, we gave the mobile homes to the tenants and said, this is your home now. And we bumped the rents up to like $675, $750. And so about doubled the rents and got rid of all the maintenance and headaches. And the deal cash flows. The deal has zero issues. It's the one property that we own outside of, our commercial deals that I don't hear about problems ever. I haven't heard about one single problem with this deal. There's never been an instance where we've had to put money into the deal because tenants aren't paying. There's never been maintenance issues, and so like I said, it's good location. What we will likely do over time is improve the park, but the best play for this probably is not a 14 unit mobile home park. Like I said, it's 2.5 acres basically, 3 minutes from
Mm-hmm.
downtown Austin. Austin has changed a lot of their zoning requirements recently, so you can now, build on like zero point
Mm-hmm.
0.1 acres. So we could take this land, get rid of the the mobile home park, subdivide it all, partner with a builder. We could sell the lots to a builder, and that's probably one of the best plays for it in the long run.
Awesome. Alex, let's back up a little bit because I want to pull a couple themes out of here. Do you I guess I want to talk about the partnership, right? Because a lot of times in successful partnerships, there's like sometimes it's like yin yang, like it is with myself and my partner David. I'm the cowboy, and David is like sort of like the thoughtful, cautious person that kind of like, and we kind of, I pull him forward, he kind of pulls me back, and that sort of thing. Um, do you and Matt both together just do you have the kind of the philosophy of like just say yes? I think that we'll be able to, if we have the actual pressure, then we'll be able to figure it out. If we don't have the pressure, then we don't have the impetus and like that sort of thing to push us through it. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. Matt and I definitely are yin and yang, and it works out really well. The thing that ties us together, though, and for anybody listening to this and partnerships, and I'm sure that this is probably the same for you, is that like I would die for Matt. Matt's my brother. We go to war with each other every single day for these businesses and to survive and to make everything work and to achieve everything. We're always the last ones to get paid. We don't think about ourselves first. It's always our partners, our tenants, our investors, our staff, our employees. And so Matt and I are, brothers, and I would die for Matt. Now we are yin and yang, but we also have the same goal in mind. We have the same vision in mind, and we're both working towards that. Now, like Matt is relationships. He wants to be out there talking to people. He wants to, he thrives off of like people. I like being
Mm-hmm.
alone, and I'm the one. I like operations and systems and processes and you know all that stuff. And Matt does not like getting into those things, and so we both uh, push the limits. I would say that the difference is that like uh, and we've learned this over time, like over 6 years of buying real estate and these businesses and everything. Like I make decisions differently today than I did back then, just through all the lessons that we've learned and everything. But you know, uh, I'm the one who like really thinks through things and is like, yeah, that actually doesn't make that much sense. So uh let's not do that. But I will think through where we want to grow and push and really push the limits in that way. And so I guess that's the difference is we're both pushing and pulling each other in different ways. But like I'm the one who oversees the implementation and operations and all of that stuff of the actual decisions that we do. And so, I have to think through these things like 30 steps further than Matt typically does when we are, pushing each other.
So let's also talk about the cold calling aspect of this because wholesaling cold calling is a very, very important component to wholesaling and finding deals. You guys have a ton of content on your YouTube channel that will actually give there's like hours of like cold calling where there's a camera that's actually following you guys. So definitely if you're listening to this, check that out. But what kind of like mental state do you put yourself in before you start picking up the phone and dialing, because you probably went through a ton of no's on this list. I mean, because Matt went through the actual specifics associated with how the kind of scripting and talk track goes. But like, what do you do from a psychological standpoint to kind of like build yourself up, or you just like don't even think about it, just like pick up the phone and start dialing?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it into words to answer. I think a lot of this goes back to what I was saying initially, with like street smarts and things. Uh, I really don't care what the other person on the end of the line thinks about me. I don't care if they hang up on me. I don't care if they curse me out. Uh, I could care less what this person thinks about me. Now, so that helps, right? Because I don't care if they tell me no. Uh, I know that they're going to tell me no, and it's just a game for me to get whatever I want out of this conversation. um, but so that helps tremendously. But then also too, like I don't necessarily want to talk to people. So that is something that I have to turn on. I'm more of an introvert in my opinion versus an extrovert, and like I just don't like get energy from conversations and people and that type of stuff. And so like Matt may enjoy that better of actually just talking to people, but for me, I have to turn it on, and I have to turn on a little bit of a personality because I'm a little bit more direct and cutthroat and straightforward and like just get straight to the details. But when I'm in these cold calls and talking to people, I have to, slow that down a lot and be really patient and ask these questions and, put on a personality that I otherwise actually wouldn't have in order to, develop this rapport and this relationship so that we can actually get somewhere. So, I don't know. It's just at this point, it's just something I have to do. Like, going back to survival, like I really view all this stuff like survival. Like we're hunting, I need to provide for all of our staff here. I need to provide for Matt. I need to provide for, our family. And so it's something that I have to do, and we have to accomplish this. And there's nothing that will hold me back from it. But I think the biggest thing that one could do to do good at cold calling is if you could, and this will help you out in so many ways with life, but if you could learn to detach your value from what somebody else thinks about you, then having these conversations and sales calls and such is really easy because who cares what they think.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I'm kind of trying to put myself into the room with you, Matt, and Jim, while Jim is talking about Roswell and LBJ and aliens, in terms of what's going through your mind and what's going through Matt's mind at that point in time. So that would, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall through that conversation in terms of who was stoking that conversation. It was probably Matt, I take it.
I don't know. I think Jim was stoking the conversation because Matt also, as much as Matt is the personality and all that stuff, Matt also doesn't want to do anything that he feels is a waste of time. And so, while Jim's talking about aliens, I mean, it was kind of a waste of time. And I think it was Jim talking to us and himself that like stoked the conversation. We were both like, all right, where's the rent roll? Like, you ready to get this signed up?
No, I've had to go through that on multiple, especially if you're dealing with direct to seller off market deals. They have a much longer life cycle than your typical off market deals through real estate brokers. A lot of people think that if you are, let's say, cold calling residential and your typical avatar for that is like a little old lady that can't keep up her house with anymore and she's got to sell. When you get it to like larger deals, somebody, they own it, it's cash flowing, it has maybe minimal to no debt on it. And so you get all these types of personalities of these people. It gets drawn out a long time. I remember one time I was so sick of this guy I was calling on this property I wanted to buy and he was just like kind of stringing me along because he was an older guy. And I think he just kind of liked talking to me and hanging out with me. I was just like, dude, man, let's get a beer tonight and make a deal. And like, I'm not leaving the bar until we make that deal. And that's what we did. And I thought I was going to have one beer. And I think I had probably, 4 or 5. But we ended up making a deal. We ended up making a deal out of it. But, and that deal alone like added like $380,000 to my net worth. That was like my first like true blue commercial like mixed use deal. So no, I mean, it's like, it requires definitely patience. Aggressive patience is kind of what is the term that I like to use on it.
I agree. I agree with that because, you know, I mean, I definitely have to put that on and put some interest on. But I mean, I am actually interested. You know, if we weren't talking about a deal that I wanted, I would have zero interest most likely. But I am interested in learning all these things because I need to know your story. I need to know your motivation. I need to know exactly what's happening here. I need to know why you're selling. I need to know who you're upset at because, you know, it's just part of how I'm going to use this later in these negotiations and structure this deal to get you what you want and solve your pain points.
So fast forward to now, I mean, you told me a little bit about this deal, but it was kind of like your first bigger commercial deal that you and Matt did together. You had done, several transactions before there and wholesale deals. Kind of what did it do in terms of transformational from going to like smaller residential to now you're kind of like in the quote unquote big leagues, and what it's done for you today, like that specific deal?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it definitely, I wish I had a better answer for you. But the problem is that we didn't, you know, for all the listeners here, is this podcast like encouraging people to go from residential to commercial?
It could either be encouraging them or scaring them out of it. So you can speak freely.
All right. Well, the problem here's my biggest advice to people. And I'm sorry if I'm cutting, you know, going off track here, but start thinking bigger, right? The name of this podcast, Go Big. Start thinking bigger. Like our biggest mistake is that we stayed in the small stuff and we're thinking too small for too long. You know, let me flip this house. Let me buy this rental. Let me do this, you know, buy this duplex. Oh, we can get 3 duplexes over here. You know, uh, I'm bringing this back to your question because this deal should have catapulted us forward into next a 28 unit, next you know, a 50 unit. But we were thinking too small, and we had our entire teams and operations and leads and everything facilitating these smaller deals. So I wish I had a better answer to where it did actually like do something huge for me and us and like catapult us to the next thing. But the truth of the matter is that it didn't. And we stayed thinking small. We stayed doing small deals. And actually those small deals and the pain of owning, you know, these properties that don't cash flow, they get good appreciation in a market like Austin, but bad tenants, bad management, bad loans, bad everything. You know, they can't afford to pay the debt a lot of times. They can't afford the property taxes and insurance. They can't afford a new water heater and AC unit. They can't afford to hire a good property manager. They can't afford to get good agency debt. They can't afford to get all the things that you should get. You know, even if you do cash flow all those things, you're not getting, I guarantee it doesn't afford to pay for a bookkeeper every month. Guarantee it doesn't afford to pay for the CPA to file your taxes, pay for a cost segregation study. Uh, these small deals with debt cannot provide true passive income. And we bought a ton of them. And I mean, after managing this portfolio, managing the managers, managing all the headaches, that is what catapulted me into saying, no mas, we're not buying another one of these things. We have to, like, the pain of that forced me into saying, I'm sure it pissed Matt off because I was like, nope, we're not doing that deal, bad location. It's not going to do anything for us. He's like, no, I got this sweet Aplex. I'm like, don't want it. We're not buying it. You know, we had to say no to all these small deals as we were reshaping our entire businesses to facilitate and support the bigger deals. But you know, that mobile home park, it didn't really do anything, unfortunately. But the pain of the small portfolio is what did it for me.
The scale dilemma is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because, and I'm gonna put a little little video together on YouTube on the scale dilemma, but this is what it is: that most people that are looking to, let's say, they get bit by the bug, they start buying, like, let's say a 2-family, and then another 2-family, and then maybe 3-family. They're working a full-time job. There's not enough cash flow from those rentals to actually, like replace their income at a good clip if they're looking to become financially independent or do their own thing. And what ends up happening is they end up giving up most of the cash flow to a property manager eventually, because they can't manage in-house, working a full-time job, having a family, and coming with all the other obligations that you have. And then once they finally get to a standpoint of like, okay, well, if I replace my property manager and got that income, then I could leave my job. And then what they don't realize is now they created a job for themselves. Now we're their full-time property manager. So it's very difficult to scale in that environment where, but if you bolt on a 50-unit deal or a 70 or 75-unit deal, or there's a mid-rise to high-rise commercial office building we bought last year that is like, it's like there's 5 tenants. It's 55,000 square foot building, 5 tenants. And that is much more much less management intensive than, let's say, 25 different duplexes or triplexes and that sort of thing. And we were able to bolt that thing onto our management operations like it was like cake.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, there is no scale with building a small portfolio. Ask anybody who's done it. I haven't talked to a single person, who's small scale like us, who has built a portfolio of 100 plus, 1 to 4 units, and wants to continue to buy more and scale those. They want to sell the portfolio. It makes sense if you're BlackRock, or if you're, a large institution and you've got 2,000 employees and you got in-house debt, you got in-house management, you got in-house attorneys, in-house CPAs, in-house everything. It is scalable for them, but it's not going to be scalable for you. And anybody who has done it is looking to sell that and get on to the more scalable stuff.
Absolutely, man. So we're wrapping up at the end of the show here. I just want to give you the opportunity, if you're doing any raises right now, to tell our audience about that, or how can they find you? I know your YouTube channel is an awesome resource that I've gotten a lot of value out of. But tell us what the best way to connect you with the guys.
Yeah, thank you. I think the best way, honestly, is just go to tr3capital.com. It'll bring you to a page to sign up for our monthly investor call. You'll also get into our system. We're about to start opening up TR3 Capital Fund 3. So we have early registration for that. But I mean, when you sign up, you're not making a commitment or nothing. We just want to talk to you. We can help you out in ways. Maybe you invest in the deal. Maybe we do deals together. But go to tr3capital.com, fill that form out. We'll reach out to you and get to know you. And then also you'll be in the system. So you'll get updates and emails and, first look at deals that we have and, getting into any opportunities that we do have available.
Excellent. All right. Well, Alex, you've been very generous with your time, man. And thank you for being generous with it. If y'all are listening to this right now in podcast land, wherever you get podcasts, and you want to further your education, YouTube, check out their YouTube channel. I have a lot of long form trainings on my YouTube channel, especially if you're looking to scale from residential to commercial. So definitely check that out. I believe my handle is like Matt M. Druin. And what's your handle on YouTube, Alex? Because I definitely want people to check that out too.
At Real Alex Kaufman and at Teichke Real Estate. We got to spell it out. Teifke Real Estate.
All right, excellent. Alex, thanks for coming on the show, man. And thanks for tuning in.